So I wanted to talk to you today about someone who worked on the Archie Sonic Comics, and I know that there's a chance that you might not know much about the Archie Sonic Comics in general. So, to keep it simple, Archie published Sonic the Hedgehog on November 22nd, 1992, up until December 28th, 2016. In this time, a lot of stuff happened, from Sonic revealing his middle name to be Maurice, all the way to a turtle being possessed by an evil computer virus made by Eggman, which then turned him into a god that rivaled Sonic at his strongest. This kind of stuff right here is what really got me into these comics as a kid, as the Archie Sonic comics ran in an alternate universe from the video games, and due to this, they had a lot of free reign when it came to what they can do, including inventing new characters. None more so took advantage of this than Ken Penders, who during his time working for Archie, invented over 200 characters, each with varying degrees of originality. For example, one of the big things that he did was slight tweaks to already existing characters and then calling it a day, such as Bernadette the Hedgehog, Sonic's mother, who is literally just Sonic in drag with a weird chunk of blonde hair protruding from her face, Rob O'Hedge, Amy's cousin, who is just Sonic with a hood on, and I mean, basically any of the Echidna people that he brought in, which are more or less just Knuckles, but with a few minor tweaks, with the odd exception here or there, such as Lara-Su, which is the answer to what the child of Knuckles and Lara Croft might look like. Needless to say, there are a lot of characters, and some have more originality to them than others, but it does seem as though Penders was much more interested in creating quote-unquote new characters that bore a striking resemblance to already established Sega characters. Now, I thought it might be fun to demonstrate this by playing a game, so I'm going to name you 5 options, and I would like you to try and guess which one is correct as to being a Ken Penders character. Alright, for A, we have Miles, a variation of Tails with gray hair. B, Onux, a French Knuckles. C, Dr. Ivo Kintobor, who's a skinny Eggman and his name is just Robotnik backwards. D, Chaos/Green Knuckles. Or E, all of the above. I'll give you a moment to think this over because I know it can be tough with the options I've just given. Now if you guessed E, you'd be correct. Miles, Ivo, and Onux all come from an alternate evil universe where everyone is the opposite of who they are in the main universe. So Miles is an evil, ruthless version of Tails, as noted by his red shirt and gray tuft of hair. Onux is the opposite version of Knuckles, who is known as being hot-headed and angry often, which of course means that Onux is a pacifist and, of course, French, as noted by the beret on his head. Ivo Kintobor is the anti-Ivo Robotnik, not to be confused with Dr. Eggman, who is actually a separate character from Ivo Robotnik in this world. And lastly, Chaos Knuckles, which is just a genetically engineered version of Knuckles, making him incredibly powerful and the living embodiment of a Chaos Emerald. So, logically, he's Knuckles but green. He's also not from another universe like the other 3 characters named, so this is just regular Knuckles had he been in Fallout 3, but Penders regards him as his own property nonetheless. Speaking of green characters, there's also Evil Sonic, a Sonic who wore a leather jacket and sunglasses, but was later redesigned to be Green Sonic. And I know that 4 characters so far have just been evil characters from an alternate universe, so one could make the argument that they should look like their counterparts. But when compared to other comics that have done this whole same thing with evil counterparts in other universes, these really do feel like lazy recolors. I could have mentioned other non-universe characters as well, but they would largely be compiled of Knuckles, but if he had styled his hair differently, or Knuckles if he was old, or Knuckles if he had his hat from the OVA, but he's not Knuckles from the OVA, this is a different character. I mean, seriously, Penders was doing this whole make a slight tweak and call it a new design way before NFTs were a thing, and actually, just put a pin in that whole NFT idea because we're gonna go back to it in a second. But first, I just want to put a nice bow on this and tie it up as we conclude the story of the Archie Sonic comics, because I think it's important to know the reason why Ken Penders has gained such notoriety within the fandom of the Archie Sonic comics. The main reason is that Ken holds a large responsibility as to why Archie stopped making these comics. To make a long story short, basically Sega and BioWare made a Sonic the Hedgehog RPG called Sonic Chronicles for the Nintendo DS. This game had an alright reception at best, unless of course you're David on Metacritic, in which case you hated this game. It also had a tie-in with the Archie Sonic Comics, which wasn't super uncommon to tie in what was happening in the video games into the comic book world, whether that be events like Werehogs or just Sonic getting green eyes. But this tie-in actually served as a bit of a prequel of sorts, as it showed off the Marauders and how Knuckles was kidnapped. It also showed off Metal Scourge, who isn't in the game, but I just wanted to mention him because I do unironically love his design. Now, you might be wondering why I'm mentioning this game, and the reason for that is the Marauders are actually the missing echidna race from the Sonic game, and much like their appearance in the Sonic comics, they're pretty advanced technologically. This pushed Penders over the edge as he claimed that the echidnas in this game were too similar to the ones that he had made in the comics, and Shade, the leader of the Marauders from the video game, was too similar to one of his echidna creations, Lara-Su. This led to Ken throwing lawsuits at both Archie and Sega until he shockingly won and gained the rights to his characters, meaning that he would be paid royalties every time they were used in a comic, and also Sega could continue with the Chronicles game. Because of this, Archie Comics more or less had to purge over 200 characters that Ken Penders had created, and this was some shocking news. I mean, that meant that Dylan the Porcupine was going to be replaced. And I mean, sure, Archie still had Spike the Porcupine, but he's no Dylan. But in all seriousness, although Ken's creations were pretty silly, there were a lot of fan favorites, such as Scourge, who I had mentioned before, who were now going to be completely lost to an event known as the Super Genesis Wave. This wave served as a soft reboot in the comics, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to save them from eventually being shut down and then sold off to IDW, where they again had to deal with another reboot. Although the IDW comics are going pretty strong, with much of the team that brought a lot of the fan favorite moments from the Archie comics. So if you're bored and looking for a comic to read, this one's actually pretty fun. Alright, so with the background of how Penders' name became so well known, it's time to get into what I really wanted to talk about, and that's what Ken Penders has been up to these days. I mean, he has over 200 characters, isn't gaining any royalties on them, and sure they're tied into the Sonic universe, but he's found a way to use them without Sonic, such as in his upcoming comic, The Lara-Su Chronicles, which has been in development for a little over 2 years, and if looking at the cover doesn't give you nightmares, then you're a stronger person than I. I mean, seriously, I don't want to knock someone's art, but this guy's a professional, and there's like at least 3 different art styles here. It's also based on an Archie Sonic cover, and don't tell me this dude isn't Anthony Mackie. I mean, he was slightly redesigned to remove his smile, but I mean seriously, this guy right here is the Falcon. On top of this, he also partnered up with comic publisher Rush to create a Scourge comic, where Scourge is now even edgier with a cigar. You might think that it's odd to have an anti-Sonic comic in a comic that can't mention Sonic. But, I mean, Sony managed to make a Venom movie in a universe without Spider-Man. Unfortunately, this comic would never see the light of day, as it was cancelled only 4 days after due to negative feedback, as shown here. This hasn't stopped Penders from trying to find a way to profit off of these anthropomorphic creatures, however, and he has offered to graciously license them for only $10,000 to be renewed every 2 years to IDW, which unsurprisingly has gone nowhere for him. So, now Penders owns these 200 plus characters, many of which are just Knuckles reskins, and so there's only one logical conclusion to this, and I'm going to let my good friend and colleague, Microsoft David, read this Ken Penders tweet.
I've locked in the characters for the initial release of my NFT set: Scourge, Lara-Su aka Shade, Green Knuckles, Jeffrey St. John and Robo-Robotnik. They will be priced at $100,000 each. As only buyers will be able to access additional bonus content, feel free to pass around the art.
That's right, NFTs, baby. I mean, all the cool kids are doing it. Just look at Eminem. No, not the candies that aren't sexy anymore. I mean the rapper who bought an ugly little monkey to be his profile picture. I mean, the nice thing with NFTs, of course, is that you own these, so nobody else can have this little monkey image but you. So yeah, Penders is after those sweet, non-fungible tokens, and for only $100,000, Green Knuckles can be yours. Maybe you'd prefer Green Sonic, or the man, the myth, the legend, Dylan the Porcupine. Only $100,000, and you could say that you own a hyperlink to a picture of Dylan the Porcupine, as you help speed up the inevitable end to the planet that we call home. Okay, so I just really needed to talk about this stuff. Seeing the NFT post is what really got me going on, because there was no fungin way I couldn't talk about the pot calling the kettle black. How can you with a straight face claim that your characters were stolen by a video game that had marginally similar characters at best, and then go on to try and profit over what is essentially just recolors of already existing characters or tracing over an already existing cover? Anyway, on an unrelated note, I'm going to be selling my OCs of Pink Sonic and Pink Tails for only $10,000 each, which is a substantial amount less. They're my original characters from the Rule 63 universe, and you'd be lucky to have a hyperlink to either of these lovely ladies. Alright, well that is the end of the video, and I want to thank you for sticking along if you have all the way through. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff that people typically ask for, and just let me know on what you'd like to hear, maybe what I can improve on, and I hope you have a great day. D. Dr. Ivo Quintobor, who's a skinny Eggman, and his name is just Robotnik backwards. C. Why are you ruining my day? C. D. E. My life. I mean, seriously, I don't want to knock someone's art, but this guy's a professional, and there's like at least 3 different art styles going on here with these and they're sorry, I was looking at the cover. Let's do that again. But I mean Sony mentioned holy crap. You own a hyperlink to a picture of Dylan the Porcupine as you help speed up the inevitable end of this line is so stupid.